saying and owning, yeah, I'm a TEDx speaker, I am a public speaking coach in addition to being a career coach. We have to own our gifts and share them as much as we can. If you're not putting it out to the people that it's going to be useful to, or you want it to be useful to, who is it for? Is it for you or is it for them? And my talk was for humans. And the thing that's going to reconnect us to one another, and I think really connect us back to ourselves, is listening. I always say nothing with a career is wasted. Anytime you spend where you are learning or developing a skill, even if you think it's not going to transfer, there is transferability in some way, shape, or form. You just got to get a little creative, but also be open to the fact that none of it's wasted. I promise.
STEM pros, let's be real. You got the degree, the skills, maybe even several years in, but you're not getting the recognition or leadership positions that you're looking for. Well, it might not be you. Actually, I don't think it is. You just haven't picked up the right tools to help move the needle. That's where the Be Incredible Starter Pack comes in. You get a leadership masterclass, a resume template, interview guide to be a pro at interviewing, and even a budget template to level up your financial game. If you're serious about stepping into your next level, head to IncrediPaul.org/start and grab your starter pack today.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Faronbi, aka IncrediPaul, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. First off, if you're only listening to this episode, I want you to know that you can also watch it on YouTube. Regardless if you're listening or watching the show, I really appreciate your support. Today, I have the honor of having Katie O'Malley on the show. She's an executive coach and workplace strategist with 20 years of professional experience serving the nonprofit, education, and corporate sectors. Since 2018, she has worked alongside hundreds of individuals, teams, and organizational clients as a founder and principal coach of Encourage Coaching. So that was just a little bit about you, Katie, but how about you introduce yourself the way you would do it?
Yeah, Paul, first, I'm so excited to be here with you.
Have you?
And just really looking forward to connecting with your audience on all things career and leadership. It is both a love and a passion of mine. I think the way that I like to introduce myself is actually through my values. So my core values are rooted in courage, justice, and learning. And those three for me, in a big way, all roll up into this overall driver of altruism. That's kind of like the thread that's pulled through my life. And then as an adult, my career. And so when I was in college, I thought the way I was going to make a difference in the world and be courageous and seek justice was through politics. So I was a political science major, graduated from Miami University of Ohio, not Florida. I always like to say we were a university before Florida was a state. In 2004, and it was an election year, which is a great time for a political science major to graduate, and had the opportunity to move to Minnesota and work on one of the coordinated campaigns out there for John Kerry. And I was convinced this was how I wanted to spend my life. This is what I wanted to do with my life. And then after working 16-hour days, 7 days a week, at the end of a campaign cycle, to have no job, no prospects, no health insurance, I was just like, this is not the stability or security that I crave. So continuing on with that thread of altruism, transitioned into the nonprofit sector and spent about 10 years working for organizations doing fundraising and development work, first out in New York City for the Children's Defense Fund, and then the Innocence Project. So raising money so we could exonerate folks that had been wrongfully convicted using DNA evidence that wasn't available at the time. So these are folks who went away, Paul, on blood type, false confession, false eyewitness identification, 16, 20, 30 years old, coming out in their 50s and 60s. And so part of it, that first part, is raising the money to pay the attorneys and pay the testing fees for the exoneration to happen, and then helping them reacclimate into a society that looks entirely different than what it did when they first went to prison for a crime they didn't commit. And while the work was clearly very impactful, it is hard to live in New York City on any salary, much less a nonprofit salary. And so ended up moving home to Chicago, spent a few years working for the AIDS Foundation of Chicago. And again, I knew the work that I was doing mattered, but I wasn't serving the community. I was serving the donors so that we could serve the community, but was unable to make that distinction at the time. And I was like, well, I'm not super satisfied, not super engaged. I'm not earning a wage that's going to allow me to build a family, buy a home. And at the time saw a lot of friends having a lot of success in commercial real estate. And I said, well, if they can do it, I can do this too. And had I met with a career coach or career counselor, you are laughing so hard right now, they would have said, Katie, there's a huge values discrepancy here. You might want to investigate before you make that move. I didn't do that. And Paul, on my very first day, I knew I had made the wrong choice. Now, and I say wrong choice, more of a career misstep, right? And it was wrong for me. It doesn't make it wrong for everyone. I'm working with 2 clients right now who very much want to be working in commercial real estate, and that's awesome, but it just wasn't a good fit for me. However, being from the Midwest and growing up in the family I grew up in, we are very much a grit it, don't quit it, of grit it, don't quit it stock. And you definitely don't quit a job unless you have another one lined up. And so I stuck around for almost 4 years, and it took a huge toll on my mental health and well-being, because when our strengths and values aren't aligned with how we're behaving and spending 8, 10, 12 hours of our day, it can be really disruptive to our nervous systems, to our emotional well-being, our mental well-being. And in 2012, I ended up taking a medical leave of absence from work for mental health, which at the time was unheard of. Now I work with clients all the time who come to me and they're like, yeah, I'm on medical leave for mental health. I'm like, this is awesome. I'm so happy for you. But at the time, human resources was like, but you're well, like what's the problem here? I'm
Yeah.
like, I wake up crying every day, and that is unwell by my standards. And so during my medical leave, went through both an inpatient and an outpatient treatment program, and it became very clear to me I wasn't the only human on the planet struggling with the crisis of career not aligning with my identity and how I saw myself. And that's when I decided to go back to school at 30 and get my master's degree in counseling so I could help people at the intersection of mental health and career. Started that program at DePaul University while I was still working full time. And what I loved so much about that was I was able to take what I was learning at night and applying it during the day with my colleagues and the brokers, not providing therapy to them, right? But the listening skills and communication skills, and eventually was able to leave that full-time job and focus on school full-time. And during that, it became very clear to me insurance companies do not want to cover therapy sessions about work because work is not a mental health diagnosis, even though work leads to burnout and the symptoms of burnout are identical to anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress. So finished the degree, but instead of getting licensed as a counselor or therapist, got credentialed as a coach instead so I could work with people in their careers, and then spent the next 10 years working in higher education at the University of Texas at Austin, and then University of Chicago Booth School of Business with students in their career and leadership development. And obviously fulfilling that driver of altruism, but not that value of justice, right? Because it's a really small segment of the population that gets to access educational institutions like those, much less all the bells and whistles that come along with it. So in 2018, built, I'm using air quotes, a website on Wix, got an LLC, put up a Facebook page. If I build Encourage Coaching, will anyone come? And it turns out they did. And had really good steady growth from 2018 to 2020. Great resignation hit. Business just took off. And it got to the point in late 2021 where I was working full time at the university, 9 to 5, seeing private clients 5 to 9, and on the weekends. And I realized, I can't be preaching work life harmony, work life integration, work life balance to my clients if I am not practicing it myself. So in 2022, which was the year that I turned 40, I was like, I'm either going to bet on myself now or I'm probably never going to do it. And so went all in on the business, resigned my full time role at the university, and said, if this doesn't work, I'll go back to working for someone else in 2023. But wouldn't you know what you can do for a small business when you can dedicate 40 to 50 hours a week to it instead of just accepting folks who come your way? And it has been the most professionally rewarding and financially lucrative 3.5 years of my career. And I think it gets to that alignment of when what the world needs, what you're good at, and having some grit and determination and discipline along the way where it can get you. Let me pause. Was that responsive?
Yes, that was amazing. Actually, incredible the story you told just through your career. And what I'm hearing is the fact that you didn't have everything planned out at the beginning of where you are right now. It was definitely stuff that happened along the way. Even what you said, like, I guess, would you say that you experienced burnout when you were at not necessarily the nonprofit, but when you're in like there was one point you said that you had to go like inpatient, outpatient. Was that like due to the
That was no, that was when I was working in commercial real estate.
real
It
estate?
was that
Yes.
mismatch of values and strengths and what got rewarded, right? And um, it made it really, really difficult. Every day felt like a slog. And Adam Grant talks about this sometimes. Burnout is less about how hard we're working and more about if we feel like the hard work we're doing matters. And if we're working hard and it doesn't matter, that is the quickest way to get yourself into a place of burnout.
That's so true because there's a lot of people that are juggling multiple things, but they're really passionate about the things that they're doing, like as entrepreneurs, and they don't feel the burnout. So I really like that definition around that.
Yeah, me too. And I haven't, even when I was full-time at University of Chicago and then seeing clients on the evenings and weekends, folks are like, "Aren't you burning out?" I'm like, "No, this is all giving me life because it's what drives me, it's what I value, and I know it matters and I'm making a difference." But if I was working those hours in another industry or field, burnout would likely be the result of that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I guess because you talked through a few different transitions, and I think each transition was probably a little bit different than the one before, where I was going from government to nonprofit to when you were in real estate to real estate, you were in education, and you were working 9 to 5 and 5 to 9 before you jumped into full-time entrepreneurship. With all those different transitions, was there one that was more difficult than the other, and why?
Uh, I think it was the transition from nonprofit into commercial real estate because it was just such a different environment and ethos and one that I had never been acquainted with before. So been out of school for, oh gosh, 9 years and had never experienced a corporate environment, just the nonprofit political campaign environment. But I will like it was the culture shift that was difficult, not the shift in the work. And even with that, what I learned in terms of skills and strengths and about myself, it all served me along the way. So what I learned working on the campaign trail served me in nonprofit. What I learned in nonprofit served me in commercial real estate. What I learned in commercial real estate set me up well to be a small business owner in some ways and having to be a little
Sure.
more tough, type A, direct, right? And I always say nothing with a career is wasted. Anytime you spend where you are learning or developing a skill, even if you think it's not going to transfer, there is transferability in some way, shape, or form. You just got to get a little creative, but also be open to the fact that none of it's wasted. I promise.
Nothing in the career is wasted. I think I was telling you at the beginning, a lot of my audience is like the earlier stages of the career, like maybe 20 to the 40-year range. And I'm really glad that you said that, that nothing in your career is wasted. Because I think oftentimes, I'm sure you see it when you're coaching people, I've seen it, is that people are hesitant to transition into something that they know they want. And they feel like they would be wasting all the years prior. I guess from your perspective, like maybe what are some key things that you took from when you were in the academic space, like University of Chicago, that were applicable to the entrepreneurial space? Just like
Yeah.
real time sharing. Yeah.
For sure. So I think, gosh, the very best example I have of this is one of the key drivers of my business are my public speaking engagements, right? So when people see me speak at a conference, a company, inevitably what will result from that is anywhere between 1 and 5 clients, right? That come out of that speaking engagement. And people sometimes also come to me to be like, can you train me up on how to be a public speaker? And I've been really resistant to that because I'm like, that's not where my training is. I have natural talent for it, and I'm disciplined and I practice, and that's why you experience what you experience. But when they ask, like, how did you develop this skill set, I say I did it at Chicago Booth because there will never be a more difficult audience than a room full of 60 super discerning, super brilliant students that just want to show you how smart they are. And so for the first, I would say, year and a half I was there, because I always said, the university didn't hire me to do this work for my business acumen. That's not why I'm here. It's for my human acumen and around human development and human behavior. And it was so outside of what they were accustomed to talking about, learning about, hearing about, that there was just very high skepticism of me and what I was trying to teach and coach and facilitate around, until word starts to spread of this person, Katie, who gives you these really great insights to help you deepen your self-awareness, improve your communication, how you collaborate, work on teams. But for those first 2 years, anytime I get onto a stage of 400 to 1,500 people, folks are like, aren't you scared? I'm like, I will never be as scared as I was with those 60 set of eyes, those brilliant eyes, just wanting to both, but then they also challenged me to be better, right? So I would say that's what set me up the most to be successful as a small business owner, because without that, I don't think I would have been able to refine the public speaking skill set in a way that allowed me to be effective at marketing myself on a stage, and then also be offered a slot to deliver a TEDx talk, which happened 2 weeks ago, that I'm super, super jazzed about.
So you said you were offered a TEDx talk or you gave the TEDx talk 2 weeks ago?
Both, both. So
Yeah.
I was doing, this would have been November 2024, 2 days after Donald Trump had been elected president. I was speaking at a Women in Tech conference, and whew, that was a hard day for
Sure.
me, for the other attendees. You know, I didn't at all believe I gave my best performance that day, put my best self forward. I was just trying to create a space for people to feel safe enough to be brave and say what was on their hearts and minds as I was going through my talk on women's well-being in the workplace. And it's like, are we even safe to go to work anymore? And it was from that, a TEDx conference organizer saw me speak at that conference, and a couple of weeks later, she reached out to me and invited me to be one of the speakers in her lineup. So that was June 30th, 2025. The talk is now live on the TEDx YouTube channel, and it's called The Attention We Give lessons from listening for a living. And it's all about my simple formula for listening in a way that leads to greater connection, understanding, and trust. And my gosh, I don't know anyone who couldn't use a little more understanding, connection, and trust as they move through the world these days.
That's absolutely incredible. Yeah, I think I saw well, I know, like, the talk you gave in November, I saw the recording of it, and that's why I was like, "Need to have you on the show." I love your energy, just the passion you bring, and, like, even the fact that your talk goes around listening, like, that doesn't surprise me at all because I can tell that you're a deep listener and just truly authentic.
Oh, thank you for reflecting that back, Paul. That means a lot to me.
Absolutely. So with that experience, like maybe I'm curious about that. Like, what was that experience like even leading up to TEDx? I've heard it can be pretty intensive with the preparation, like as much as you want to share, willing to share about.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what I will say is they want you to succeed. They want you to do well. They want your talk to go viral. They want it to be what you want it to be. And so the process of putting together the talk actually started in January. So for 6 months, the first step was to submit your abstract for what you were going to talk about. You get feedback, make those changes, then you put together an outline, get feedback, make those changes, write your first draft, get feedback, make those changes, write many more drafts. I think I had 5 or 6. And then you start rehearsals. And because the TEDx conference I was doing was in Boston, we were doing virtual rehearsals. And I'm like, this is fine, but I need an audience, right?
Yeah.
And this is where for your audience who is listening, always ask for what you want. The worst thing that someone can say is no or ignore you. But if you don't ask, you won't get it. And I'm like, I need an audience. I need a space. And I put it on LinkedIn and just said, throwing this out there, looking for a space where I can bring in friends and family to give me feedback on my talk for like during a dress rehearsal, or if you want to bring me in to talk to your team or your company and deliver a dress rehearsal of this talk, happy to do that. And the influx and support that I got from LinkedIn was incredible. So ended up being able to do a dress rehearsal at McDonald's HQ, which is just about a 10-minute walk from where I live, which was incredible and amazing. And then also the opportunity to run a dress rehearsal for my friends, family, clients um in a friend's office space. And it was those two experiences that really set me up to be effective on June 30th because it got so much great feedback from the first delivery, incorporated it all. And then when I did the dress rehearsal at McDonald's, it was the Thursday before the Monday of the talk. So kind of like last and final before I get on a flight to
Yeah.
go. And the adrenaline rush of that moment, even though most people were online, even though I was live in the space and there were familiar faces in that audience, my mind just went blank for the first 20 seconds. And I was so glad to have had that experience with that physical reaction. So the first time I had it wasn't when the lights went on, right? And I was standing on that red dot. And so I got some feedback from folks being like, I can't believe you're putting yourself out there for people to give you feedback, criticize it, tell you to do this, tell you to do that, for you to not have it fully memorized. And just, I'm like, if we don't practice, we can't make it exceptional. If you're not putting it out to the people that it's going to be useful to, or you want it to be useful to, who is it for? Is it for you or is it for them?
Yeah.
And my talk was for humans. And the thing that's going to reconnect us to one another, and I think really connect us back to ourselves, is listening.
Yes, connecting us back to ourselves. And there are so many mic drop moments you have. You just kept going. So I couldn't
Oh,
get to it.
sorry.
No, no, you're good. It's funny to me because it's just so casually. It's like, oh, spoke at, I had a dress rehearsal at McDonald's headquarters and like all this other stuff. But it's like that's so incredible to see just how your story has evolved. And well, first I'll say congratulations on the
Thank you.
TEDx talk, because that is a huge accomplishment. I will definitely make sure we link it in the show notes when this comes out. And let's get more people to you, because more people need to just see what you're doing, with whether it's on the individual level with coaching, or when you're speaking in rooms empowering women in tech, like you had that conference, and I know you speak really all around the country. It's incredible.
Paul, thank you. And I don't mean to sound nonchalant about it. I
No,
just,
no, it's just
um,
it's natural for you. That's
and
all it is. It's good.
the other thing I'll share, like, because you had asked about preparation, and they say you have to have it memorized, right? So there's no teleprompter, no cue cards, no note cards, no notes on your hand. And I felt like I was back in college studying for finals, right? Or to take the GRE. And it is far and away the hardest task I've ever undertaken professionally, to make that moment as exceptional as it was. And I am going to say exceptional because I'm super proud of it.
As you should be.
Thank you.
So I'm tying it back, because you said something in there that I want to come back to, about if you don't something around, if you don't practice, you don't have the opportunity to make it exceptional. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I definitely want to hone in on that, because I think
Yeah.
sometimes people, there's a it's easy to underestimate the value of practice and consistency and repetition. That I think a lot of
Mhm.
times people will talk about becoming an overnight success, and I just say that that is not true for anyone. You know, there's a
Agree.
there's so many things that happen behind the scenes, or other people know about, that you never get to see. And I think it's definitely true in your story. And I'm curious about, like, when you're working with clients, is that something you see a lot about, kind of a hesitancy about putting themselves out there or practicing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's one of the biggest things that I work on with folks. And a big part of coaching, too, is just being alongside someone as they're going through the discomfort of trying something new or practicing something new, and reminding folks we all had to crawl before we can walk and walk before we could run. Whatever you have great depth of experience and knowledge, and now you didn't start out that way. So, what makes this different?
I think that's a big part of coaching, is s- reading between the lines of what people are saying without saying
Oh,
they're
yeah.
struggling with.
For sure. It's what is the problem they're presenting, and then actually getting to what is the pressing problem that is causing this presenting one. So it's, we have to make something exist before we can make it exceptional. And I don't know if this will resonate with you. My guess is it will probably resonate with members of your audience. I am a lifelong recovering perfectionist. And so even
Yes.
getting something down on paper, I'm like, well, no, if it's not going to be perfect. And I was even running into this writing my script, right? And finally, I'm like, no, what would you tell I had to tell myself, Katie, what would you tell your client? You do what Brene Brown would call an SFD, which is a first draft, and you just get it all down, and then you go from there. It needs to exist first. And so, whether that's a resume, a cover letter, an email asking for an informational interview, shooting your shot with someone, make it exist, and then you can make it great. Don't let the perfectionism get in the way of your progress. And really, the only way to build confidence is by taking action. The only way to alleviate anxiety is by taking action. Those are the two best antidotes to both.
Yeah. That's really powerful, because especially with what you said, like Brene Brown's worst first draft, is people are afraid. And I definitely resonate. I say that I'm a recovering perfectionist. And
Mhm,
sometimes
mhm,
I
mhm.
put myself in situations that I'm uncomfortable, or doing new things. Because even like with podcasting, for the longest time, I was like, I don't, that we were talking about this a little bit before. I was
Yeah.
like, I wasn't even calling myself a podcaster, even though I've been doing it for 2 years. I was like, well, I'm just kind of doing this thing. I didn't tell people about it. I mean, a lot of people knew about it, but I didn't tell them about it. And I think it's one of those things that when you are not as intentional, you kind of hide your gift from people.
Mhm, mhm. And I mean, it's how we start. I told you, I'm like, I didn't think I was a public speaker. I didn't call myself a coach right away. And now I'll be coaching next year's TEDx Andover speakers, right? So my performance got me that invitation. And so again, all of that prep wasn't just for those 16 minutes. It was for whatever comes next and being open to those opportunities. And now publicly saying and owning, yeah, I'm a TEDx speaker. I am a public speaking coach in addition to being a career coach. We have to own our gifts and share them as much as we can.
Our gifts and share them as much as we can. So many mic drop moments in this podcast we'll have to draw out. That's really good. But as we wrap things up, I want to make sure, is there anything that we haven't talked about either in your story with what you do with Encourage Coaching now as a TEDx speaker and upcoming coach, or you didn't say coach. What did you say you are for your behalf?
Public speaker,
Public speaker. Yeah. Yeah.
just owning it.
Yeah. Anything around that you want to talk about?
I mean, I think the encouragement I would give to your audience, especially folks in STEM, scientific advancements, technological discoveries, all of these things are amazing. But even if an algorithm or AI is supporting a job search or helping decide calibrations on promotions and salaries, nothing is ever going to be human interaction. And so, if there is any place that you want to invest in terms of your professional development, invest in your leadership development. Because even if you're never going to manage people, you can still be a leader. Leadership is about creating meaningful change that advances a team or an organization or a cause, and you don't have to have a title to do that. So, really thinking about how do you want to lead, whether or not you want to stay, if you want to be an individual contributor forever, that's awesome. You're still a leader.
Mhm.
And what are you leading and how are you leading yourself first?
That's very powerful. Leading yourself first. I have a talk I do about leading beyond titles because it is very true that people think you have to have this management title, leadership title, which, yes, if you have that title, you are a leader, but you can lead from anywhere in the organization.
Mhm, mhm.
That is
Paul,
so,
we agree. I think we need to do a part 2 of this.
I think we might have to. I think we're going to have to. Well, I want to make sure people know the best way to stay connected with you, whether it's your socials, website, how do you want people to connect with you?
Yeah, so new website launching next week, but the domain and the web address is the same. So encouragecoaching.org, or you can give me a follow on Instagram at Encourage Coach Chicago. That's where we post a lot of great content that about work, career, leadership that will both make you laugh, but also help you learn and develop. And then if you're just wanting to chat about something I said, shoot me an email, Katie at encouragecoaching.org.
Awesome. I'll make sure that's in the show notes so you can stay connected with all the incredible things that Katie is doing as a overall public speaking coach, TEDx speaker, coach overall, all the things. Katie's doing so many different things. You got to stay connected with her. Thank you so much for making time to be on the show.
Thanks for having me as a guest, Paul. Can't wait for the follow-up chat.
Yes, the follow up will be coming for sure. And then really turning to the audience, I already know you got something from Katie's episode where whether it's the navigating the transitions in different organizations, different type of work, really understanding that you can do different things. And even coming back to what you were talking about at the beginning, like understanding what your values are, like with the altruism piece that you're mentioning and making sure that your values are aligned with what you're doing. Because when they're not aligned, that's where you're going to experience burnout and all these things that are just going to be really draining to you. If anything, there's so many things we got from the episode, but I want to make sure I bring that back up too, because I think that's something that's, especially in the STEM field, like it's really easy because I'm a STEM person, like we get really deep into the weeds and we just burn ourselves out on data, and we don't do enough with the human connection. The human piece is why I want to have you on. And that is why this whole podcast exists, because the leadership piece, the personal growth piece is so critical, because it's not really soft skills. I would say they're life skills or leadership skills, because they're going to help you in every aspect of your life.
Yep. Power skills. There's nothing easy about soft skill development.
Absolutely. Nothing soft about it. But yeah, thanks again for being on the show, Katie. And for everyone else, keep being incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.